How do you attribute the design of Miracle Place and some of the things that are going on with the new Miracle Places compared to the past?
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about this place called Miracle Place. When you think about a song, sometimes you can interpret the song and it has meaning to different people, and the songwriter maybe had one thought, but you never really know what the songwriter was thinking. But the song is something you never forget, and it works for so many people at so many different levels. Miracle Place works at so many different levels to describe this campus. At the client level, it works to help a mother who's struggling, maybe a victim of domestic violence, find hope and safety. For a child, they can find education and a new future for themselves. So there's a lot of opportunities for life change. And these little miracles that take place on this campus, they're sustainable. The families that come through our campus a year after they've graduated are still in stable housing. So we know that the miracle takes root here, but it really grows and matures, and families move on to be self-sufficient. That's one interpretation of Miracle Place. The other interpretation is how this even came about. When you think about the height of the Great Recession, that we decided that we were going to take on a $23 to $25 million investment to care for more families. And we wanted to build a new early childhood education center. We wanted to build a new school. We wanted to build a chapel, expand our dining. We wanted to have a teen center and a youth enrichment center. We wanted to have a gymnasium on this campus. But the most important thing is where I'm sitting right now. It's a home for a mom that would be out on the streets if it wasn't for Miracle Place. It's a safe place for a child to go to bed at night that wouldn't be in a safe place if it wasn't for Miracle Place. And so our board, when we decided to move forward, is housing's the number one issue. We had families on our wait list. There was suffering out in our community. Tampa was the height of the foreclosure crisis in this country. And we said, it's not right. It's not right for a child ever to be on the streets. And so part of that miracle is deciding in the height of the Great Recession to take on a $23 million campaign. Part of that miracle is the way the board unified on that. Part of the miracle is how the community got behind that. And here we're sitting in a campus that is fully funded. Pledges are still coming in, but it's a fully funded initiative. The other miracle I'll talk about is how the building community came together. Our general contractor and all our subcontractors built this beautiful campus. But all of that, really none of that, can take place without a good plan, a good design. And that design came together when we worked with Fleischman Garcia. Here's an organization, here's a team of trusted professionals that we knew that were competent and they could do a great job. But why we selected Fleischman Garcia was they cared. Plain and simple. They cared about how it would impact our families. They cared how it would impact the staff and the volunteers. And they cared about how it would impact our community. We're in the Heights. We're in the historical district of the Heights. The neighborhood association 100% backed what was going on with Miracle Place. Why did they do that? Because Fleischman Garcia, Stan, and the entire team took the time to be a part of this community, build something that would be a community resource, not something that would be not in my backyard, but no, something that would really signal the revitalization of the Heights. That started here and it continues now. This is going to be a great community for Miracle Place to be a part of. And as we work through with the city, zoning, the Historical Review Board, it was the most complicated proposal that the Historical Review Board had ever seen. And if Saul Fleischman wouldn't have been in the room, it wouldn't have been approved right off the bat. So we had no issues working with the city and Fleischman's plans, their oversight, their care to detail. They made the difference.
What Stan said something to me interesting the other day. This is something we didn't talk about. So if you don't feel comfortable answering, he said one of the challenges that, and we talked about this yesterday when we met. He said one of the challenges that Metropolitan Ministries had for us is that they didn't want us to design things so nice that they'd scare off donors. And he said, how do we approach that with Tim? I go, I don't know. I'll just ask him and see if he has a response. Well, what do you think? I mean, how's that fine line? How did they walk that fine line?
So Miracle Place is a temporary home. It's not anyone's permanent home, and it's part of a program. The program is to alleviate suffering, promote dignity, and instill self-sufficiency. Self-sufficiency being the key. If you make something so comfortable, so nice, that somebody is not going to work their program. See, it's the program first, and then it's all these buildings that support the program. So what we wanted was something that would be provide dignity, which is a key component of our mission statement. We wanted it to be seen as something that the neighborhood would feel comfortable with. We didn't want to put something in here that was contrary to the architecture of this community. And then we also are big believers in stewardship, in how we treat our families and also how we treat our donors. So we wanted to create something that would take each dollar and maximize the impact of that dollar. Because we are, and this was predominantly built with private donations. And so that stewardship said, let's build what we can to care for 100 families. Let's do that with dignity, but let's make sure it fits within our program and helps people move towards self-sufficiency. And it's a beautiful place, but I will tell you, if you had to live in a 460 square foot room, which this is a beautiful room, but this was your room for a year, eventually you're going to say, I'm ready to move out, which is what we want. And we want our families to move out and find their own home. That's the best miracle that could take place in their life.
That was really well put. I think it's just one more really important thing that we have. You guys talked about how incident reports have dropped down. I mean, how does design help in that regard?
You know, the original shelter on this campus was built in 1987, and it was good. And it's cared for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of families, if not thousands. But they were 260 square foot rooms, and they were built for short stays because it was emergency shelter. As the complexity of the issues that the families were facing, so as we looked at the traumas that families were dealing with, they were much more complex. And it wasn't going to be a short stay that's going to allow a family to move into housing. The number of Section 8 housing units, the clamp down on welfare and other programs, you couldn't just come into our shelter and then leave in 3 weeks and find an affordable place to stay. So our programs had to pivot to provide wraparound educational services to help somebody move forward. Well, education programs and other counseling programs take time. So people were staying in a facility that was built for a short stay, and they were staying a year, sometimes even longer. Well, that creates additional conflicts, and my biggest fear was the I can almost talk.
No, you're making good sense.
The I can't even say it. I want to say institutionalization.
Yeah, okay.
But anyways, I didn't want to institutionalize our clients. We wanted to give our clients hope. When you stay in a facility that wasn't built for long stays and you're there, it gets very complicated. So the whole point of what's going on this campus is we have more room for families to be families. In the old facility, it was just one room. There were bunk beds, and there was just enough room to turn around in your bunk bed, and you had a private bath. Here we have a space where privacy for mom and dad, We have room space for families to be families. They can play games together. They can do homework together. There's more than one light in their room, And then all the other common spaces that we built on the campus, the educational facilities, the gymnasium. This playground is our family's backyard, which they never had before. They really just never had a backyard. So the environment created an opportunity for life change. And it didn't add stress, let's put it that way. It didn't add stress to the situation. It relieved the stress that our families were facing. So by designing the system, designing the campus the way it's designed, it alleviated the stress and the traumas, but created a safe environment for families to live and grow, but also to move on to their own home in a very successful manner.
I just want to change this battery because I want to talk about the chapel and then we'll be done.
Okay.
The design of the chapel more specifically.
Okay.
Ann and I talked about the chapel, and I think you and I, people talked about it, that know me, you talk about what's that? The fact that through good design and forethought, they can make a multi-denominational chapel that makes anyone, no matter what your God is, you feel at home.
Yeah.
Why do you know that's a chapel when you walk in the door if it has no real denomination?
Yeah.
Why do you know it? I mean, why would you know? Can you feel it?
The Chapel of Hope is at the centerpiece of Miracle Place. We were founded by 13 downtown churches back in 1972. We've been a faith-based ministry ever since that time. And we've always found a way to be welcoming and loving and supporting of any individual that comes on our campus. We say what we do is an expression of the ongoing ministry of Jesus Christ. For some, that comes from their specific faith walk. For others that may not have that faith walk, what it means to them and what we want them to know, it means that we're going to love you and serve you, because that's what Christ did. He loved all and served all. So that's the manifestation that we want on this campus, to know that you're loved and you're going to be cared for no matter what your faith walk is. And so now when you build this Chapel of Hope, and by the way, these 13 downtown churches that came together, they were all different denominations. So they had a variety of doctrinal beliefs, but they came together to care. That's what we do. We come together to care. So when people come on to this campus and then they see at the center of this campus this Chapel of Hope, it's iconic. You don't ever have to walk in that campus to be into the chapel. You don't ever have to walk into that chapel to know that this is a special place. And for those that believe in a God, they know that there's someone bigger than themselves that loves and cares for them, and that's why we call it the Chapel of Hope. In that space, there's a place for one-on-one work with a chaplain, private, just to work with whatever you're dealing with.
Just to work with whoever you're dealing with, that's what you said.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll turn that sucker off. I can't believe that stupid email anyway.
Down is off. Down is off.
Yeah, okay.
So within that space, in that Chapel of Hope, there's a private space where you can sit down with a chaplain and talk one-on-one specifically about your issues and talk about spiritual formation. And what we like to do is light the way. We're not a church, we'll never be a church, but we want families to get connected with local churches and synagogues in their faith beliefs, but we want to nurture that, and we want to provide an opportunity to show that way and to remind people that there is a God that loves them. The chapel is an optional component of this campus, but you can't miss it. There's congregational space in the chapel. Our families have all dealt with loss. They need to deal with issues of loss and forgiveness and hope. That takes place in that congregational space. And then we have this iconic prayer tower, which we could have picked any closet and said that that's the prayer room, but we wanted something iconic so that if you're in this room and you've put your children to bed at night, you look out the window and you see this tower lit up at night, again, you're reminded that someone loves you and cares for you. Someone bigger than you or I cares for you and has a plan for you. And we want our families to understand that, whether they walk into that space or not. And when we find that the prayer room is a place for silent reflection and meditation for our families, as well as for staff.
That was excellent. One more line about how design works. How design works, especially for metropolitan ministries. Or just wrap it up.
Did you
for us.
talk about the tower that lights up all night?
Yeah,
I didn't
yes.
read my email. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure did. Yeah. No, we got to come over at night and shoot that.
Yeah, you do.
So let me talk about
Okay.
design for just a second.
Okay, it's absolutely fine.
I'm an engineer by degree, and that's another whole story. But as an engineer, I'm always thinking about process and design. We think about that in our programs, quite frankly. We think about if we can help more families from becoming homeless, that's better than just having a great facility for people to come to. But we want to work upstream in the process to care for more families and stabilize families. We don't want to create trauma, we want to eliminate trauma. So it's in our programs. It's also part of the design of Miracle Place, is that through design, we can create a space that supports the mission statement. And I've talked about the mission before, but this idea of alleviating suffering. For our families, when you talk about alleviating suffering, one of the first things they say is safety. It's a safe environment. They've been in unsafe environments. So to be in a safe environment, they love that. Well, we have designed here a campus that is open in the middle, and it's safe on the inside, but it's also welcoming to the community to take advantage of this space when they're invited to be a part of it. But on the weekends and after hours, it's a safe environment. That means so much to our families. It's alleviates suffering because it's comfortable. There's wonderful food here. There's shelter here. The dignity is the educational components that are built into design. There's so many different education spaces on this campus that can change the trajectory of an infant, not just the adult, but of an infant, or an elementary age student, or a teenager. We can change the trajectory of their lives through these facilities that we've never had before. And then it leads to self-sufficiency. It leads to all the life change that we try to bring about here, takes root and then matures as families move on with the care of our case managers and our counseling team. But the design has to work, and that's what we have seen by working with Fleischman Garcia. We've got a design that works, and it aligns with our mission and vision.
Perfect. Good enough. Thanks, boss.